So in week 5, we talked about social structure and social interaction, and we started the week off by having a couple of our peers provide some information on this very topic. Just as a reminder before we delve into the content, social interaction, if you'll recall, is the process of how we behave with other people, and social structure is why we behave with other people. So those patterns that we've learned, either spoken or unspoken, that kind of dictate how we react when others are around us. One of the very first concepts that we learned about when we were talking about this information was that of our status. So there's different kinds of statuses, and we have those ascribed statuses or those statuses that we're born with. We don't get any say in those particular statuses, and then those that we achieve, the ones that we work for. We also talked about master status, and this is the status that overrides everything else. It's a really important part of our social identity, and sometimes we don't get to choose what that master status is. Sometimes it's dictated for us based on perceptions of others around us. We talked about status and consistency, which comes when we have different social positions that are ranked differently. So in the picture here on the screen, we're taking a look at someone who is both a wife and a researcher. And so how do we kind of reconcile those different statuses? We also talked about roles, so the duties that are associated with the different statuses that we hold. And we have different performances that we have to engage in dependent on the role that we're playing in a particular moment. And sometimes we have role conflict, which is when we're not able to easily play multiple roles. And we have role strain, which we can have different duties within a particular status, but they are at odds with one another. So don't confuse those two. We talked a little bit about how symbolic interaction comes into play here. So when we were talking about social interactions and social structures, we talked about how our lenses, our perceptions shape our reality. And because of this, we tend to engage in what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy, where if we define something as real, then we act upon it. And that holds true with how we communicate with one another as well. So while communicating with actual words are only 7% of our communication, somewhere between 70 and 80% is actual nonverbal communication. And in our particular society, how we interact nonverbally is really important. We tend to think of people as being a little strange if they do things like invade our space. And we try to counteract that invasion by doing things like putting our hands up, maybe stepping away, or just otherwise politely redirecting them when something that goes against the norm is seen. So in addition to nonverbal communication, it's not just when we're engaging in actual conversations, it's also how we act in public spaces, private spaces, etc. Speaking about how we act in private spaces, one piece of conversation that happened this week was the pros and cons of online interaction. And one of the groups really did a great job of talking about this quite a bit. So I won't say a whole lot on it, although I will kind of just revisit this overall conversation about how online interactions does impact a person's ability to kind of engage socially when they come in contact with people in real life, so to speak. So we are seeing effects of folks who are online for many hours a day and how that impairs or strengthens a person's ability to kind of navigate the different environments that we're in. When we're talking about how people use online resources, we need to be aware that not all resources are accessed equitably, and so we shouldn't make assumptions about what people are able to know, see, hear, be aware of when we're talking about online interactions. Okay, guys, that's all I've got for this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about groups, institutions, and organizations. So gear up because it's going to be a pretty lively conversation. And just to give you a heads up, I am going to have the department chair from the sociology division at Rock Valley College observing me. So we're going to have a visitor for a little bit on Tuesday. I just didn't want you kind of weirded out when some random person walked into the room. So that being said, have a great weekend, and I will see you all on Tuesday.